Hi, this is On Imagination with Zoroastrian and Cthulhu of magic, science, wizardry, and the arcane arts. I just wrote up this description: logic, the connecting and disconnecting of A to B in the natural order to create growth, connection, and comprehension. That's it. The connecting and disconnecting of A to B in the natural order to create growth, connection, and comprehension. That is it. That is all logic is. It is the science and the process of connecting A to B. And you connect and you connect and you connect, and that grows, or you disconnect, and that's disintegration. This is logic. This is growth. The feeling you get when you have it inside of you is love. It's why when you are in love, you have this feeling to want to go forward with that person. It means you want to connect and grow and expand in a logical, natural order toward the next stage. That is why logic is love. When you have a beautiful, complete, woven, flawless, pure, logical connection from A to Z, you have the truth. When you have flaws inside of your gorgeous, woven, logical composition, you have a lie. You have faults. You don't have truth. The art of connecting A to B is done through something called a premise, basically. Every single premise had to go through a logical proof in order to come into existence. So a logical proof is the process of creating a new premise, a new sentence. And that is also built on former premise. So it always leads to the question, what is the first premise? And that is the question, what is love? Love is the first premise. What is love? Ironically, love is logic, this process, the process of connecting from A to B and so on and so forth. So that when you assess, does my mother love me? Love is nourishing growth in the correct natural order of connecting A to B so that I can grow. Does she do that? Yes, therefore my mother loves me. Does she not do that? No, well then my mother does not love me. When you are building a proof, you require at least two premises, which is a simple sentence or a simple statement. And the simple only consists of a noun and a single verb. The dog walks. Most of all premises are composed originally from observation, from trial and error, and from scientific method. Scientific method is the process of trial and error. Most human people who are not scientists do trial and error without realizing that they're doing trial and error. Scientists do trial and error strategically and on purpose. That's the difference between a scientist and a non-scientist. This is the only difference between a scientist and a non-scientist. A scientist will purposely do trial and error with strategic deliberation. A non-scientist will wing it. As a result, the scientist ends up with a highly strategic data point that they can then accumulate and build into a premise. Everybody else does not. As a result, the scientist gets their data done pretty quickly in anywhere from a couple hours, maybe even a few minutes, to 20 years, depending upon the size of the project, maybe even 30 years, depending upon the size of the project. Everybody else might get lucky and figure it out, but they won't be able to tell you how they figured it out. They'll just say, oh, you'll have to figure it out too. A scientist will then take all of the accumulated data of their experiment, and then they will pass it on to the next person and say, hey, guess what? Look what I found. You need to learn this. And then they will pass along that data so that the person before them will have a nice, smooth journey and they don't have to reinvent the wheel. Everybody else does not. So when you start to understand the difference between a scientist and a not scientist, it's a real wonder anyone who is not a scientist can figure anything out at all. A scientist does everything through trial and error on purpose and with deliberate strategy. So we are going to walk you through the trial and error process. Now, you are already doing the trial and error process, but you are probably most likely doing it wrong, incorrect, out of order, and sloppily, which is why you cannot figure shit out or problem solve. Trial and error is where everything in science begins. But we use something called scientific method to get done our trial and error process. Now, my scientific method is different than the scientist's scientific method. The scientist's scientific method is a traditional scientific method, and it only consists of about 5 parts. Now, this is sufficient for science. However, it has a logical fallacy in it. And if there is a logical fallacy, which means if the scientists guess wrong, they are going to end up in an unsolvable logic loop, and some of them have. So I have a different scientific method that actually has their 5 pieces and then some. Mine is about 12 stages long, and I also have a preliminary let's clean out our bias before we begin section. So the very first thing that I do with my scientific method is I clean out any and all bias. I do this by having a conversation, an if-then clause, logical formula argument with myself on the status of, well, vrata, which is truth, and asha, wisdom. So I sit down with myself and I have the whole what is most important to you, truth and wisdom. And if you're wrong about this, I don't care because I value truth and wisdom above all else. And if you're wrong, that means that I'll have something new to learn. I'm very excited about being wrong because that actually means something to learn. So truth and wisdom are way up here. Do you value anything else other than truth and wisdom? Nope, they are it. Good, we're ready to begin. That is what it pretty much looks like, is understanding the importance and the value of truth and wisdom. So before I do any scientific method, that is what I do. The next thing that scientists do is they feel their feelings. Literally. It is called intuitive logic. In mathematics, they changed this word to mathematical intuition. This is stage 1. Now, with me, I like to get curious first. So I start with curiosity and wonderment. And I ask the question, what is that or why? So I begin with a question. Now, this is where my scientific method differs very differently from traditional science. Traditional science will not ask a question, they will make a statement, which in my opinion is really stupid because now you enter into a logical fallacy and a scientific paradox. There's no other word for it. It is a scientific paradox where if you have a logical fallacy or you have an hypothesis that is false, you will then spend your entire scientific career chasing and trying to prove a false or illogical fallacy, but because there is no logical fallacy, you will never be able to prove it. And as a result, you will just continue in this massive long loop until someone proves it absolutely hardcore incorrect, which may or may not ever happen. In the meantime, you are wasting thousands and millions of dollars on research and your time while you are chasing something that is only a statement or an hypothesis without any kind of anything to it. So I always like to do a question and never a statement, because the statement runs into a severe problem. So I ask the question, I have curious and wonderment, and then I explore the why. And I explore the why using logic and definition. Now, the way this works is my intuition is here, which is pure logic. And then I find the words and I literally carve out the words until I can find words that match up to my intuition. Once the feelings and the words all match and they coincide, I would rate these on a scale of an 80% match up to a 100% match. Now, I am not satisfied unless I get a 100% match. I want the precise words. Sometimes I will study linguistics to find better words, more words. And if a word does not feel like a 100% perfect, cozy fit, then I fill this in with a placeholder of this is inaccurate. And I know that. That's also going to completely change all of my data. So I am now looking into making sure I have the right words that match 100% to what it is I'm trying to say. Now, as you get near the end of research where human beings exist, you start to run into a problem, which is called there are no words yet that exist for this. So now you get into the art of nomenclature, which is the science of naming things. Taxonomy also does this. So as you invent new things that's never been discovered before, you get into the art and the science of inventing new word, which is how I know that words are not evolved, they are morphed. So once you have the right words, then from there you move into simplification. And the simplification of the word is the logical process. Now, this right here is where logic takes place. From the point of your intuition, from the point of your question, all the way to the point of simplification. This passes through your feelings into the definition. Before definition, you have imagery. So it goes feelings, imagery, definition. And then from definition, you have logical comprehension, which is basically where you start building all of the statements, the premise, to clarify and verify what that is, which is what we are doing when we communicate. That's all we are doing when we communicate. The difference between communicating with logic and without logic is this. When you communicate with logic, things are in the right order of natural order. I have to emphasize that they're in natural order, and they are building comprehension. They are related and relevant, and also, again, in the right order. So when it's logical communication, it is natural order, comprehension, related, and relevant. When it is illogical, it is out of order, there is no comprehension, it is unrelatable, or it is irrelevant. This is all that logic is. Logic is just all of the words in the right order for comprehension that is related and relevant. Yes, please. That's it. That is it right there. If you do not have those 4 requirements, then you do not have logic. You cannot have anything without these 4 requirements. If I present to you cell mitosis, there's going to be a natural order for comprehension that is related and relevant. And when you connect those things together, you are going to form a chain. The chain is what I like to refer to as knitting. You knit logic. If you knit, this is going to be so much easier for you to follow. If you do not knit, I advise you learn how to knit, because this is vital to understanding what logic is. When you have thread and you cast on, I might teach you how to knit. When you have yarn and you cast on, you are actually building your original premise. You are building the foundation of your logical comprehension. That is, what is love? Who am I? Where am I going? Where do I come from? Your family is supposed to be the thread that you cast on with. And then you start to knit. As you knit, what you're really doing is you are building up your logical comprehension of life. So let's say you've been knitting for 2 years, which is equivalent to saying you have been living for 2 years. You are going to have 2 years worth of knitted reference. Now, for every lie, falsehood, or natural disorder or lack of comprehension that's unrelated or irrelevant to your logical comprehension, you are going to have a dropped stitch, which is to say that that is not going to be able to hold your entire chain together. It's going to frog or unravel. And when it starts to unravel, it's not going to make any sense, but you're still knitting, because you cannot live a single day without knitting. Fact, you get 144,000 data points crammed into your brain every day. Thank you. 144,000. Check it. It's a Googleable fact. How much data gets uploaded into your brain every day? Every bit of data goes through this logical checks and balance process of trial and error, checks and balances, which is the process of asking, is this compatible with my logical comprehension? Is this illogical and incompatible with my logical comprehension? Or is this, what's the third one? What's the third one? Nope, that's all you get. You get 2. Is it logical or is it illogical? The logical data goes into your brain. The illogical data gets rejected. It is self-preservation on a fucking level like you would not believe. Now, the problem is you have abusers, and the abusers can pretty much say whatever they want to bypass this process, and they do. I call this the abuser's door. This is inside your cognitive core. So you have your identity, which is pure and perfect and beautiful. That is perfect, pure, perfect, logical code. I know it's redundant. I cannot emphasize this enough. You have your ethical definition. Now, these are inside of you no matter what. Now, they're going to enhance and develop and grow as you learn proper nutritional knowledge. If you learn the wrong knowledge, these won't grow. If you learn nothing, they won't grow. And this is going to stunt your growth. This is going to help you influence what you want so that as you want, it stays ethical. But you're going to want more things as you grow older. You want to make sure that you grow your ethics alongside it. A healthy person will have these two things aligned and imbalanced. Chances are you're not healthy because you grow up in that culture. So now you have logical data that's coming into your brain, and you have this abuser's door where all this logical data comes in your brain. Now let's assume for a moment that you're healthy and logical and you've been trained in the proper education. So now your ethics are growing in ratio to, with proper balance to, your identity. So that as data comes in, you now have the ability, it's called autonomy, to weigh in on your decision on whether or not something is illogical or logical based upon your intuition, which is based upon the truth, which is Mother Nature's. So that's really what you're doing. Data comes in, you compare it to your logical intuition, which is weighed in against the truth. It's a big system. It's a huge system. It's beautifully balanced. All of the logical data goes into your information. That computes and continues to build up this gorgeous logical comprehension. Now you've got your net. This is your story happening. Now you can summarize all of that and simplify it right into your name. This is what a name is for. This is the power of a name. This is what is in a name. It is a seed of who you are. Wow, I need a minute. A name is the seed and the summation of who you are. It's your identity. So your name is your identity. That, Shakespeare, is what is in a name. Everything. It is the seed of the self. Once you have that in relativity to the rest of yourself, and it's all beautifully balanced, we have the summation of all of that called your perspective. Now we understand, oh, this is your perspective. This is why your perspective is what it is, because it is reflecting all of this data. Now let's step in an abuser who walks into your abuser's door. You've got data that's coming in. Now your system is absolutely wonderful at being able to weigh in this stupid data in relativity to your intuition to determine if it's true. Very simple process. But you have an abuser who now calls himself a friend. Now you're going to hear friend, and you've been programmed to automatically respond to the word friend. So you're going to think, oh, this person is good because he's friend. That's what his name is. And you have forgotten to analyze the fact that you've only known him for 10 minutes. But your brain won't do that. Your brain will calculate friend. Okay, that's the name. I know exactly how to process friend. That is what an abuser does. They bypass the logical center of your mind. Now you've got incorrect data. That is friend stored into your information. It's processed. It's been received into your entire knitting. Now you have a knitted logical blanket where friend is now plugged into that definition. Let's fast forward your friendship 3 months, and he cheats you, leaves you, and probably robs you. Now you're torn up. Oh my God, I trusted him. Oh my God, that was my friend. Oh my God, how could he do this to me? Well, it was a stranger. A stranger did that to you. But because he used the word friend, your logical centers plugged that in. Now, where you went wrong is this. You did not use the fourth ethic, and you did not use the second ethic. The fourth ethic is I needed to use discernment to assess whether or not he really was my friend or not. Second, I did not use my self-authority to weigh in his words in value over to the truth. He called himself a friend after knowing me for 5 minutes. That should have been a red flag to you. But it wasn't a red flag because your educational system is so low that you didn't even process that. That is how illogical you are, is when a person says friend, you don't go, wait a minute, you're a stranger. Why is a stranger calling me a friend? That is how low the educational system is now. So that when a stranger says friend, that's good enough for your brain. which means you now have to study logic to increase that ethical standard so that when someone says friend, your logical system will kick in and go, wait a minute, that's not accurate. Because you have the equivalent of a 2 or a 3-year-old's logical system because you never learned logic. So your logic stopped growing at age 2, which is why there's a mental health crisis. So that now an abuser can step in, claim to be your grandfather, and you'll believe them over logic because you doubt yourself because of self-authority. Self-authority is compromised at around 2 years old when your parents claim that they are more authoritative than you. That immediately destroys your ability to understand the self, and now you put other people on a pedestal. This is what I refer to as the forbidden fruit paradox, because now you won't claim the authority unless someone gives you the authority, which defiles the authority, because authority is claiming authority as an authority figure because you have claimed your own authority without permission from anyone else. But authority tells you don't question authority, which creates the authority paradox of, oh, well, I have to wait for somebody to give me permission as authority figures because I don't have the authority. This is why the word authority should never, ever fucking be used unless you are an author, which is why the word is called authority, authentic author. Authority actually means an original, the one who authored the original. I am an author. I have the authority because I authored this. Euclid is the authority of geometry. Oh, my daughter's got something to say. Yes. I authorized it because I'm the author. Euclid is the author of geometry. Everyone else is a hack. Euclid is the author of geometry. Therefore, he is the authority of geometry. We're all just experts, which is our skill level. But Euclid is the actual authority. This is how it works. This is logic. When you are at a point where you can author new shit, that's when you're the authority of it. But there's only ever one authority. Anthony Burgess is the authority of Clockwork Orange. There is only one author of Clockwork Orange, and that is Anthony Burgess. There is no one else. Everyone else can be an expert, but no one else is an authority. So when you step into a place where you are claiming authority, you are actually compromising the entire forbidden fruit paradox, and that's becoming a problem. It's a hot mess. When you start to go through the natural order for comprehension that is related and relevant, it is a process. And that process includes being able to identify what is the order. Before you can put everything in order, you have to take inventory. So taking inventory is when you make sure that you have all of the equations or all of the components. We call them components in science. When all of the components are present. So now it raises the question, how do you know you have all the components accounted for? This is vital. This is the very first thing that non-scientists mess up when they step into the world of trial and error. A scientist knows how to take inventory to get 100% of all components present. A non-scientist will get lucky if they can find 2%. In most cases, non-scientists only take into account 2% of data, and then they build up their own equations off of 2% of the data, and then they calculate wrong, and then they end up with the wrong conclusion, and then they go through it and they don't understand why it's wrong, and they assume they can't learn. They assume that they are skillless. You are not unskilled, except in the area of learning and logic. If you have logic, then you have this ability. So what you're really questioning is your logical skill. We're back to that again. When you question your logic skill, you have self-doubt. So you might be justified in doubting your own self, which would be highly logical because you never studied logic and you are definitely older than 2 years old. Therefore, most likely you never developed your logic skills beyond 2 years old because mommy and daddy interfered with that process. So now we have to make sure that you learn logic in the right order of operations so that you can start applying logic, so you can start to build your own code, and that will allow your brain to continue to grow beyond 2 years old. 2 years old. So self-doubt in your logic skills, if you're unskilled, yes. Can you learn them? Absolutely. It's very easy to learn logic. It's so easy. I'm going to say, go read Sophie's World. That's all you need. Sophie's World will teach you all of this while it integrates it right into your system. It's amazing. This book will make you smarter. It's amazing. So when you are evaluating trial and error, you want to take inventory. You want to make sure that you have 100% of all components. In order to tell if you have 100% of all components, you basically want to make sure that all variables are accounted for, so that when you calculate everything, you can see that it literally can walk into, there will be gaps. There will be gaps missing. You won't be able to make full calculations. You'll only be able to make one particular calculation. So it works like this. I'm going to leave my husband, or I'm going to stay with my husband. There you go. Two basic, there you go. So if I leave my husband, then this will happen. If I don't leave my husband, then this will happen. We see this with pros and cons list. And this is why we build a pros and cons. What you are really doing is logical calculation based off of you taking inventory. But have you ever noticed that there's 4 parts to that grid? Most people don't do this. Most people think that there's 2 parts to that grid, when in fact it's a quadrant. There are pros and cons if you leave, and there are pros and cons if you stay. So you are always going to have 2 lists, one for the choice if you leave and one for the choice if you stay. Most of you probably do only one of these lists, which is why you are not seeing most of the problem. Once you have all of the data, you can literally run through every variation. How will he react when I tell him? Well, he could react like this. There you go. He could react like this. He could. So now you're calculating all the different variations that it could occur, and then you're running through each scenario of hypothesis. This is what your imagination is for. If you do not have an imagination, you're not going to be able to do this. This is why it's really important that children and people of all ages have their imagination, because without this, you can't do this, which is what the problem is, because the government cut your art department in the 1990s. So now you don't have an imagination because you don't know how to make believe. But make believe is mathematical projection and forecasting inside of your mind for future events and logic. So that when you make believe, what you're really doing is teaching your brain how to do mathematical forecasting. So that every time you imagine, every time you pretend, every time you watch a story, every time you do theater and stage or write, you are actually practicing mathematics. That is why you needed art, so you could practice your math. Because that is how you practice math, through art. You practice physics through art. You practice logic through art. There is nothing that teaches you the sciences more than art. So if you're an artist, surprise, you're really a scientist. You just haven't been taught how to find the science inside the art. This is really weird for me because I have to look for the art inside the science. It's really weird for me to be on the other side of this. So whenever you do art, you are really doing science, and you have to find the science in the art. So if you are a musician, you are actually doing mathematics, logic, and physics all at the same time. And I do mean all at the same time. So music is your physics. So when I tell you study physics, go study music theory. It's mathematics, logic, and physics. When I say to you, go do art or drawing or sculpting, what I am really telling you to do is geometry, logic, and physics. When I tell you to go cook or bake, you are learning chemistry. And I don't know how to explain biology. That's like doing full orchestration and putting it all together. That's biology. If you were to create a wedding cake with a musical composition, there you go. Yeah, so it would be an artistic wedding cake that also goes alongside your own musical composition. That would be biology. It's literally integrating all of them together. So when you look at just music and art, I did skip theater and stage. So theater, stage, you're dealing with linguistics and logic. Linguistics and logic. So that's really it, over and over again. Music, art, books, theater, stage, and then putting it all together. Which is why the arts were so important, is because it is how you study math, it is how you study logic, it is how you study physics. When you do music, you are learning the logical order of operations for literally relative and related growth. And when you are building a painting or a drawing, you are layering upon layering because you are putting it in the right order of operations. There is an order of operations when you draw and when you paint and when you sculpt. And you are learning the order of operations through art. You are learning comprehension through art. You are learning how to translate it from your feelings into imagery, imagination, and then into linguistics, definition. And that's what definition is. Definition is word. It's giving shape to something. That's what words do. It takes the image and it puts it right into the definition of shape, which is where we get into reading, writing, arithmetic. That's where we get into theater, stage, poetry. And then from definition and shape, from there, we go into the summation or the simplification of it. When you get into the simplification of it, this whole process is logic. After that, then it gets simplified even more into mathematics. That's actually what it is. When you have the logic and the math shows up, it's because you've simplified it into symbols. Now you can start seeing the actual symbolism that represents the words. It's exactly what we see when we look at hieroglyphics. Hieroglyphics is mathematics. It's the same thing. Hieroglyphics, mathematics, and symbology is the summation of a thought or idea, which is logic. The whole process is logic. From there, you're going to see the rules of how they work. This is physics. You're going to see how it moves. You're going to see how it behaves. This is all physics. Behavior and movement, behavior is physics, which is why psychology is physics, because it's behavior, which is why it took a physicist to figure out all this shit with mental health, is because it's physics. So physics is behavior, how it's moved, what the rules are going to be when it starts to move. From there, it gets into, if it applies, cocktail and compositions. It's when you start to bring it all together into a recipe. And then from there, you build upon that recipe and you start to create an integrated whole. Biology is the science of an integrated whole, which is why to study all of biology is so vast. Now, this is the process of breaking down all of logic into a single fine point. This is integration. But in order to do that, you first have to disintegrate. You have to start with logic and you have to start breaking it down and unweaving it, which is literally equivalent to knitting. So you start off with your one cast on and you just knit. You constantly knit. And then once you're done knitting and you look at it and you go, oh, this is what I've got, then you start to pull it and you unravel it and the whole thing disintegrates back into what it is. Except you would end up with disintegration. So we like to reverse that in logic. Always. You always disintegrate first. You always break down and look at each individual components first. which is the integration process of all of the components and then breaking it down until you simplify into just one point. You get that one point of simplification, and then it disintegrates. And as you disintegrate it and you break it down from one point into multiple genres, you get to that point and then it goes again. Now, this is really, really important. That point of one name, that is Plato's point. And that is the point where the integration is passed on to the student for disintegration. That right there is where all knowledge begins. It's a seed. Plato's point is the seed of knowledge. It is when you take that one point and you pass it on to the student and you say, why do you think we learn? Right there. Why do you think we learn? The first question never should have been, who am I? Where are we going? The real question is, why do we learn? That is the first question. Why do you learn? What is education? And now you've got Plato's point. Plato's point is always a question. And this is why it was encouraged to ask questions. Is because when you ask a question, the question is the integrated whole of the answer. So that as you begin to unravel the question, you start to break down the levels and you start to disintegrate the one question into comprehension. I'm going to say that one again for you. It is disintegrating the question. Disintegrating the question into comprehension. And this is learning. This is the only way you can learn. If you do not disintegrate the question, it will not be converted into comprehension. We see this when we take apart a computer or a radio to see how it works. Knowledge is the exact same way. It is reverse engineering or disintegration and then reconstruction or integration so that you can understand how it works. This is the only way the mind learns. In order to do that, you must have logic. Logic is the learning process. Logic is literally the science of learning. And as you learn, you actually pursue the truth. As you pursue the truth, you discover who you are. As you discover who you are, you grow. There are a number of logical concepts in logic, a number of them. Everything I ever learned from logic, I learned from Wikipedia. I learned from Sophie's World. I did not have Khan Academy. I went to the logic portal on Wikipedia and I just read the encyclopedia. And they had so much cross references that there was nothing else needed. But I was 21 when I started that. My logic prior to that was just intuition and developing my intuition. So you want to really develop your intuition? Read Sophie's World. That will definitely help. That will do so much to develop your intuition. In addition to that, I read books. Reading books forces you to see and do logic. Reading is logic. You are absorbing and you are processing data. You are putting it in the right organization of the right order. When you start looking for mathematical patterns, oh, that's a whole nother level. And that's where you're going to want to start looking for comparisons. That's when you're going to start looking for data. And that's when you start putting down your rows and you start looking. That is absolutely part of logic. That is like logic stage 2. So logic stage 2 is when you do mathematical pattern recognition. It isn't even mathematical. It's just pattern recognition. If I were to give another name for mathematics, it would be frequency. It would be frequency, pattern, frequency. Let's give it another name. I love you, Pythagoras, but let's try something different. I would call mathematics frequency. I would call it something great like otorhinolaryngoscope. An otorhinolaryngoscope. Do you know what that is? You know what that is. An otorhinolaryngoscope is that weird thing that the doctors have that they put in your ears so they can see inside your ear. They also look inside your throat with it and they look up your nose. That is an otorhinolaryngoscope. Great word, right? Otorhinolaryngoscope. It's like sphygmomanometer. Sphygmomanometer. That's that thing that goes on your arm that goes when they that sphygmomanometer. Sphygmomanometer. I've been saying that for years. It's one of my favorite things to say. So mathematical. I would call it frequency. Equilibrium. Checker. Calculus is calculation. So that's actually already taken. I'm talking mathematics. Frequency, equilibrium, abbreviator. That is what I would call mathematics. Mathematics' true name is really frequency, equilibrium, abbreviator. That is what you are doing when you are doing mathematics. You are just taking a pulse. Congratulations, you're taking a pulse. And you are making sure that everything is balanced. So that's it. You are just, are you balancing okay? And you've got a pulse. Great. Now we're going to abbreviate that. There's mathematics. That's math. Frequency, equilibrium, abbreviator. Let's add calculus. All right. And now we're going to calculate that. There you go. And that is math in 2 words or less. There you go. Well, 4 words or less. I abbreviated. All right. Now, math. That is it. That is really it. It is the disintegrating the question into comprehension. It is the science of integration and disintegration that is growth. That is logic. It's the science of growth. So when people say, you don't need logic, are you fucking kidding me? It's growth. It is literally growth. And I think about this a lot, how this got missed. When I put together logic, I was inside of it. So being inside of something, this is something we need to teach you, is understanding when you're inside or on the outside of something. Knowing when you're on the inside versus on the outside. It has a feeling. It has a feeling. When you're on the inside, everything looks really, really big. Huge. This is probably from me having a nightmare for 32 years. I had the same nightmare for 32 years every night. Same nightmare. And because of that nightmare, let me think about that. It might be because of that nightmare that I developed this skill. I got to think about this. Yeah, it did. It did. Oh, this is my alter's genius. So when I went through a really horrific experience when I was 8 years old, and it was literally a Tommy, the Who's Tommy. You didn't see it, you didn't feel it, you didn't hear it. It was one of those. I went through that when I was 8 years old. And I woke up the next morning with multiple personality disorder, and almost everything prior to 8 years old completely wiped from my memory, because I was put in the subconscious mind, kind of put to sleep. And my alter, Joanna, was put in charge. That's called a host. And she was put in charge. So she ran the body, she ran all the decisions, but I was in the 4th level of the subconscious mind, sleeping. And she lived my life for me for 32 years. The identity, which is me, the identity is the one who has to communicate, but they only can communicate through imagery. So knowing that I was in the 4th level of the subconscious mind, basically my identity needed to communicate, hey, I'm down here, with my conscious awareness, because my conscious awareness was no longer being run by my identity. My conscious awareness was being run by my subconscious mind. My conscious awareness literally got reassigned from identity over to my subconscious mind. So my subconscious mind got to make all the choices for me. And the only way the identity could communicate with the conscious awareness to clue the conscious awareness in as to what's going on is by sending dreams. So the identity learns at a very young age that if it wants to communicate with the conscious awareness, it has to send dreams. What you are listening to is about 10 years of my Freud and Jung studies. This is all I studied when I studied Freud and Jung, was the psychology of dreams. And the dreams are literally the identity communicating with a conscious awareness, but they can only communicate in feeling. They can only communicate in feeling and in imagery, because the identity is literally the beginning of your scientific method. Feeling and image, which is part one of your cognitive core. It is scientific method. The next stage after that is going to be your words. It's going to be the communications that you speak. It's going to be all the things that you've said. It's going to be your comprehension of ordering. It's going to be literally everything you need, because now things are starting to get a little complicated. You've got your feelings and you've got your image. You might be 2 years old at this point, but now things are starting to take shape in your mind in such a way that you can see words. You can feel words and sounds, an actual sound assigned to it. Every sound literally is birthed from the feeling. A sound is birthed from feeling, from picture and image. So that when you look at it, a mother, you're going to say ma, because that is, I don't know why yet, I'm still looking, but basically the M is the first, it's the first word of the alphabet. Yeah, we got this really messed up, guys, but M is the first letter of the alphabet. Wow, I can see the order of operations of the alphabet in the right order. Wow. The entire alphabet just completely reworded itself, and I just, wow, we really messed it up. So what it is, it works like this. This is linguistics on a fucking level. This is on, you see this in My Fair Lady. It's the it's that. And then you listen to it, and a trained linguist will be able to identify precisely how many sounds I just uttered. Over 47. It's extraordinary. And as you hear and see the shape of the mouth, it happens in a certain order. So, ima, ma, oma. Now we're getting into mother. Now we're getting into mother. Now, if you were to sit down and write the word mother and just copy it all down, and I do mean every language, we got ima, we've got mom, we have oma. Thank you. No, that's important. Oma. What do you have? Okay. Ima, mom, oma. But as you can see, there's like the M is the common denominator. This is how we do math, people. M is the common denominator. Oh, you can understand this math because it's sound. You're going to understand this math. I'm going to show you how to apply mathematics to linguistics so you can understand it. Holy shit, you're going to love this. Oh, this just made everything so much easier. All right, so everyone knows sound. Everyone knows sound. What? That's just a minute. I just had an epiphany. What is it?
You have mom, right?
Yeah.
There is pop. because like they go opa.
Opa. Yep. Opa.
And then there's padre.
Yep. You know, it's
It's the
interesting.
same thing.
Dad is really, well, that's no, yeah. But op. Let's go op and then pop. Yeah, papa. That's Irish.
Spanish.
Padre. Padre. Yeah. Pa and padre. You got pa. So there it is. So oompa. Sorry, that's just what I saw immediately. They're like, ooh, look at that. Oompa loompa. Awesome. Oompa loompa. Okay, that's what we're all trying to say. We're all trying to say oompa, guys. That's what the word is. We're trying to say it. So now you can see the word P is a common denominator. And you can also see how A and O also shows up. You can do this literally with, okay, what's the third word that almost every child says then? Same thing with ama. We got a lot, am. There's a message. See, this is decoding. And this is exactly how decoding works. So next word, usually it's food. Eat. What is the next word a child says? Usually something to indicate food. But they would simplify it for their comprehension.
No.
What's the third word a child usually says?
No.
No? You think it's no?
That's another one. I don't know. No.
It is the third word. Look at that. That is how early we learn boundary. Wow. It's like, okay, you can say mother, great. You can say pa, great. Okay, now make sure you use a boundary. Wow, that's telling. Allow your children to set boundaries for themselves. Hey, there's your homework. Everybody, allow the children to set boundaries for themselves. This is a big one. This is the one. This will fix everything. I found it. You have no idea. I was looking for the one thing. The one thing. You don't know what this means. I have to translate it. No, I don't. I'm just going to speak it. What this means is that I have found the first logical code of the entire problem. So once we fix this one, generations in the future will be fine. This is the one that parents have been violating. This is the only one. This is it right here. This is the first anything you've got to learn. No. It's a boundary. It's the very first thing a parent teaches its child. Boundary to keep you safe. And then the child practices it. No. And you ignore them. You tell them, don't you tell me no. Right there. Right there is the narcissism. That's the narcissist seed. You stop doing that and all generations in the future will be fixed. That's literally going to solve everything. Let your child say no. Parents, that's all you've got to do. That is all. You have no idea. Parents, teachers. Okay, let me put it to you this way. We start doing this now. Children who are age 1 will never know mental illness. Never. You have fixed the broken code. Children who are age 2 will never know mental illness. They have learned the first thing. Boundaries matter. Boundaries actually have an effect. The 3-year-olds, they will start to be corrected. The 4-year-olds will start to be corrected. They're going to have a small adjustment period. 5-year-olds, they're going to struggle a little bit because of the confusion. Give them the extra space and time. 6 and 7-year-olds, they're going to struggle. By 8, they're going to go through a mental grief period and a breakdown. Allow them the grief process. That's normal. Allow them to be angry. Allow them to be angry however long they need. They do not have to forgive. They've got to learn how to forgive. We're going to go through that too. After 8, you're looking at 9, 10, 11, 12. From 8 to 12, it's going to be a really hard ride. They're going to lash out, and they're allowed to, and that's good. They need to lash out. Children need to tell their parents everything that they hate about their parents safely. I did this with my children. My children you always tell me what you think of me. You always be honest with me about me. And 100% psychological safety. That's what I gave my children. That is how I protected my children from me. That's how I did it. That's what I've been trying to say. Good God, I love it when I find something that I need to say because it's like, these are the words, guys. I gave my children psychological safety, no matter what. That is a rule I made for myself that would not be broken. My children had to be psychologically safe. I was insane when I said it. Joanna said it, not me. This was Joanna's rule. This is why she was so fucking beautiful. We all hated Joanna. We all hated her. She hated herself. It was really hard some days not being angry with her for what she did. And Colin, multiple personalities, bitch. And after we integrated, I would never allow myself to get angry at her ever again because I loved her so much. And I didn't want her to hurt anymore. I doubted her goodness for so long. I have been doubting her goodness from day one until now. The fact that she set the rule that my children were not allowed to be psychologically unsafe. Game over. No matter what I did, I could not break that vow. And when I started to see me breaking it, game changer, it clicked something in my brain and I went, I have to go get help now. So your children must have a psychologically safe place. Your children must always be psychologically safe. That is the first law. The second law, do not make the children cry. If they cry, you let them cry. Do not make them cry. The third rule, let the children say no. Immediately. This one is mandatory. This is mandatory. Let the children say no. Teach them boundaries. Teach them boundaries by showing them respect for their boundaries. The fourth, let them hate you, get angry with you. Scream at you, but not abuse you. This will teach your children how to get angry without being abusive. Yes, it will.
Stranger Things. When Mike gets mad at Hopper.
Yep, when Mike gets mad at Hopper. Watch Hopper. Hopper does it, guys. There's your example. Stranger Things, second season. It's when Hopper takes Mike into the room and he goes, you hate me all you want, kid. Or was it season 3? You hate me all you want, kid. That's okay. You hate me. Hopper gives you an example of what that looks like. You, parents, are the safe people for your children to hate. It's good that they hate you. It means they feel safe enough because they love you. Let your children hate you. Oh, you have no idea how much they need this. You have no idea. Absolutely. You always give your child, this is what my mom did for me. I taught my mom. I had to teach her how to do this. I had to teach my mom this. She was 20. I was 20. She was 35, 40. And I finally had the ability to tell her how I felt about everything. And my mom defended, argued. And I heard her trying. I said, Mom, I need you to listen. I don't need you to say I'm sorry. I don't need you to tell me anything. I just need you to listen. And my mom loved me so much that she said, okay. And for 2 hours, I told her everything. She cried with me. She just cried with me. And that was all I ever needed. That's all I ever needed was my mom to cry with me. That's all I needed. It was literally the crying together that healed me. What is that feeling? Oh, I don't know what that is. I have no idea what this feeling is. I have never felt it before. It feels like the integrational empathy of the feeling you feel when you're sad and understood. And home. And it changed my brain after that. My mom and I had a perfect relationship after that. Perfect. It was flawless. I didn't need her to kiss my boo-boo or tell me it was going to be okay. I didn't need her to reassure me. All I needed was for her to listen and then cry with me so I wouldn't be alone. It's the process of using empathy. It's a story projection. Story projection. Story projection. Displacement. Share the story. Cry together. What is that doing? I would call that bonding. It's crying together. That's what heals it. That's what heals it. Cry with your children. That's going to be the 5th rule. Cry with your children. Listen and cry. My mother, I think, is the best mother in the world. I'm going to tell her that. My mother kept me safe. And the little things she did. After I taught her that, from that point on, my mother, every time I talked to her, she knew to just listen and cry with me. No one had ever taught her before. Because of my mom's trauma, I always assumed from a very early age, it was known that I was smarter than my mom. But I saw my mom trying. I saw her trying. And I can tell you from the reverse analysis precisely where it is that things helped, that things made a massive change. And I can feel the chemistry in my brain. So I always could feel when something worked, always. I always could feel my brain working. I always could feel it moving. And I got to a point a long time ago where I can feel different parts of my brain working depending upon what I'm calculating or what I'm doing. And I've now associated the sensation with the action, which immediately causes a chain reaction of events in my brain in a precise order, so that I know the formula already of what it feels like with each part of my brain. I'm almost at a point where I can track it because it literally follows the same boom, boom here over and over again. It's like, it's like boom, 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 literally boom, boom, boom. I hear it. And that's the pattern over and over in my brain. Boom, boom, boom. It's the beginning. And I was able to teach my mom what I needed so that my mom started to nurture me the right way. Let your children teach you how to parent. They know. They're getting it from Mother Nature. They're learning from Mother Nature. You would be stupid to not ask your children. How do you know what to do? How do you know what's right and wrong? Because your children already know. It's you who fucks them up. And it's just because no one ever taught you. And that's okay. We can do it now. So, your children must always be psychologically safe. Always. That is primary number one. Do not make the children cry. Let them cry, but do not make the children cry. Let the children say no and honor it. No matter what. Let them hate you. Get angry. Let them scream at you, but do not let them abuse you. This will teach your children how to have emotions without abusing others. It will teach them how to hear boundaries if they abuse you. That's important. My daughter, like every child, we go into conflict. And it's a very simple, these were rules I established with my children at a very young age. There is no character assassination. not allowed. Put that down for your next rule. 6, absolutely no character assassination. No character assassination. This is something I raised my children on. And it is still to this day in my head. I can't get it out of my head. No character assassination. Name calling is not allowed. I set this rule with both of my husbands. It was not negotiable. It's not allowed. Name call, we're done here. No, I did this over and over again. This is one of the first boundaries I had to learn. I had 20 years of mastering this stupid boundary. No one was allowed to call me a name. No one was allowed to attack my character. God, I had like, but by the time I was 21, I was like, these are the fucking rules. There's no name calling. It just wasn't allowed. The word shut up is not allowed. The word shut up. We do not say that word. I decided this the day my daughter told me to shut up, and I went, oh, we're never good. I never used the word ever again. It was the day my daughter said it to me, and I got to feel it, and I went, that word's gone. She said it, and I just got blasted with the energy of it, and I went, oh, that's a filthy word. No. Shut up is not allowed. That is such a, don't say the word. The other word is whatever. Not allowed. Not allowed. Those 2 words were so fucking banned. Whatever means fuck you, which goes back to the character assassination, but it's in disguise. So whatever and shut up. I walked right up to my kids every time they said whatever. And I said, are you trying to tell me to fuck off? Why don't you tell me to fuck off? Oh, I did that to my kids. every time. They did not do it very often. Once in a while, just whatever. Do you want to tell me to fuck off? Is that what you're trying to say to me? Because if it is, oh, by all means, please say it. Every time. They learned real fast. If you're going to say fuck off, say it to my face. Don't say whatever. This is huge. This is huge. I had one other rule that we had growing up that was just solid. And these parenting rules, let your children parent you. Let your children teach you. When my children hit 18 years old, I did this. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate my parenting? 1, oh my God, what the hell was that? 10, you are amazing. And I got ratings from 2 of my 3 children. My third child is not yet 18, but she will get the question. And I got an assessment from my children. I received an 8.5 from my daughter, from my oldest. My son gave me a 9. So I'm going, all right. Now, their stepfather got a different rating. That's a different topic. But I improved. No pressure, Lizzie. But that's by allowing that, by measuring it, by taking an approach of, I'm the apprentice here. And that's it. You are an apprentice parent. You don't know jack and fucking shit. Now, the beautiful thing about parenting is we know this. So I'm going to say the words. You want to learn. Be as humble as a parent with a newborn. There you are. You want to know what real humility actually feels like? Humility is the feeling you get when you realize just how ignorant you are with a new child. That is humility. I want you to just take that feeling in, because that's what real humility feels like. That's it right there. We all have a fantastic example. Every parent has that example of, here's another example of humility. You remember your first day of high school? Humility. Humility is, oh, this is beautiful. Humility is your first day of high school. Okay? That is humility. Humility is your first day as a parent with your parenting skills. Arrogance is the feeling like you are an expert when you are an apprentice. Arrogance is the feeling like you are an expert when you're really an apprentice. When you start to define the words differently, you can start to see the world differently. Every word I say to you is going to give you a feeling. Every word is assigned its own feeling. Every word is assigned its own emotion. A word is a vessel with pure energy inside of it. Now that I know I'm a mage, I can say that and go, oh, that's what I mean. And my brain just went, you are not a mage yet. I know. I'm a wizard, but I'm not a mage. Oh, I cannot wait. Okay, I'm a wizard, but I'm not a mage. So, pure energy. Now that I know I'm in, like, this is making so much more sense on a level. So, word is, you are literally taking, it's the association. It's the mental association. So you have to break association. Association is just learned, which means it's integrated, which is part of your conditioning centers of your subconscious mind. And because you are messing around with the conditioning centers of your subconscious mind, what you are really doing is association, learned, conditioned, integrated. Okay, that's the pathway. Now, all of this is the order of operations of logic. So all you have to do is break the association. The whole thing thereafter unravels. And that is how you unlearn in like 2 seconds or less. Literally, that's it. That's why it's like, don't let people tell you have to learn to unlearn. That's bullshit. No, you don't. You just have to find a little loophole and the whole thing unravels. So, association. To break the association, this is how it's done. Word. Like I say friend, you get friend, something like that. So I say a word, you get a feeling. Like I say fuck, you're going to have a feeling. Some of you are going to feel uncomfortable. That's a feeling. The reason why, there's a lot of reasons why I swear on this thing. A lot of reasons. I have so many logical reasons why I swear, and it's not going away anytime soon. So many reasons. So, but it's all perfectly logical, I assure you. So when you are breaking the association, what are you doing really is you are taking the simplified word, which has been contaminated, and you are replacing it with the entire descriptor. Describe the words. Oh, people with ADHD are going to hate this. I know. But describing the words is going to take you a lot less time. It's going to get you to practice your speech, which you need to do. So one of the rules for this is going to be, it's not a rule, one of the instructions, that's a good, instruction is the right word. The instructions for this. Wow, I have not been in, this is a new space. I have new words to correct. I found new territory. Okay, so the instructions for this, not the rules, process it. The instructions for your course is going to be using descriptors, descriptors, and definition instead of single words. So don't say friend anymore. Use a different phrase. 3 months with this language, and you'll be able to rebuild the language from scratch. That's right. 3 months of this, and then you can rebuild the language. You just need 3 months to clear your subconscious mind from any kind of programming. So 3 months of you practicing this, and I mean you practicing it, and if you got to be isolated, you hear nothing but this. If somebody is talking to you and they say a word, you stop them. Good practice, interruption. And then you clarify, what does that word mean? And you ask them. So this is vital. If you are communicating with people, interrupt them and ask them to define. Ask to define. This was huge for me to learn the language, the science behind it. I unlocked over God knows how many languages. I found out that no one had the right definition for money or currency or fun or joy or work. And nobody had the same definition. Not one. I didn't get a single. This is mother coming down. Do you have any idea the dirt I found on you guys? Let me tell you. I asked people to define basic words, and I never got the same answer twice. Because some dipshit said something about words evolving instead of looking it up in the dictionary. Which is why we have a dictionary. Because words don't evolve, humans do. So when humans evolve, they need constant reminder what the words are, because they're evolving. Don't ever change the words. But this is what's happened. So all the spell work has been changed. All the spell work has been changed. And I can translate the actual meaning of what you guys are saying. And I just want to go, stop talking. Don't say a word. Because I can understand everything you are saying in the original, actual logical text. I had one very dear person to me screaming. She was so mad one day. And she's like, I keep manifesting that my power come back to me. Your power never left you. How long have you been manifesting that? 3 months. Well, you already have your power. That's not the right word. Well, what are the words? Your power is already with you. How to use my power? Manifest. Show me how to use my power. Show me how to use my power. Oh, a week later, she unlocked hers. Show me how to use my power. Show me how to use my power. These were the manifestations I used the entire step of the way to unlock all of this. It was knowing what to manifest in the right order of operations at the right time, every time. I was taking the mathematical, logical, everything, the calculation, the formula that I found for life, and I was literally using it on myself constantly. So I literally built my own natural road to this point on a trail of manifestations and wishes coming true. So that I figured out that pattern, and I was able to reverse engineer the science behind manifestation. And now all I do is literally weave road constantly for where I'm going with all of this. And show me how to use my power was vital. was so vital. I wove multiple oaths, highly complex logical oaths that are fitted with, well, let's just say they're called unforgivable vows. There is no breaking them. And I took at least 3 of them. Every time I had another stage in this, I would purposely weave ethical code, honor binding me through logic to the code. This knowledge is not free. Ironically, it costs you your slavery. That's what a knighthood used to be about. It's an enslavement, a consensual enslavement. It is the only way to get this kind of knowledge, is by accepting the consensual slavery to it. You accept this knowledge and you are owned by it. You are its servant. You have no choice. There were 3 time periods where I was able to receive this knowledge and level up. I often take the vows to, well, they are important to me. Whenever things get exceptionally hard for me, I use my vows as my mantras because I cannot break a vow. Because I've been saying it for so long, I cannot break a vow. I'm Scottish. It's a thing we do. It's not possible to break a vow. It's just not possible. It would be so illogical, I can't conceive it. I'm starting to forget lying. It doesn't look like lying to me anymore. It looks more like illogic. It's just pure logic. Why would you ever weave something that's not true? Why would you ever do anything but? I don't understand. I don't understand why anyone would ever lie. When the reward for telling the truth is so substantial. Holy shit, it's pure freedom. It only costs you your slavery. But by gifting consensual slavery, you get another level of freedom. I can't begin to explain it. And I realized the more I was able to speak freely, the more I told the truth, the more I realized I didn't have to justify my wanting to wear a crown barefoot into the middle of Manhattan in the middle of any day. And I suddenly went, oh, look at that, freedom, because I'm telling the truth. This was very interesting for me. After my mental disorders were gone, I had a severe fear for about 2.2 seconds. And it worked like this. There was the day I realized I had multiple personality. And then there was the next day when I realized, oh my God, I can do some really weird shit and no one will judge me. So I did. And I had a get out of crazy town card for free. It was amazing. I had the ultimate get out of jail card. You know what I learned in that time period when it was between May of 2022 and April of 2023, when I lived with my alters for an entire year and we were buddies. We had a whole year together with all of us knowing about each other. And I knew who my 4 people were. I knew exactly which each one of them was because we collaborated and they said, these are my cards. And I went, oh my God, that's you? That's me too, not me. You don't have any of this? Fascinating. We had these conversations so that we knew each other. We knew when who was doing what because we could identify each other's behavior. And we were able to track down the behavior of the 4 of us. Now, I want to point out, this is not including me because I was still locked up downstairs. This is what I got to see. It's frustrating, but okay. So they're all doing their get out of jail free card, all that jazz. And where there's this moment where identity, who wasn't an alter at all, identity had this thought. She went, wait a minute. Colin can be like this really weird ass BDSM mistress and no one will question it. And Berrigan can be a dude who's 6'1" while you're a 4'11" girl smoking a clove and drinking a Guinness. It's fucking awesome. And you don't have to explain to anybody in the world why you're suddenly talking with this weird ass Irish accent. Cool. And then you've got Joanna, who literally, like, it justifies, it explains. It doesn't justify, it explains. There's a difference. It explains all of the behavior. Not justifies it, explains it. And identity had this moment of, so if I act really fucking weird and out there, no one will think anything of it. So identity had this free year of being able to do whatever the fuck she wanted. And she did. And no one questioned it. No one thought anything of it. I had the ability to live for an entire year free. Because I had a multiple personality get out of jail free card for a year. I got to learn what it was like being me without any fear. I'm not going to lie. I became addicted to that feeling. I became addicted to that feeling of being able to be me no matter what. And I was so addicted to that. I'm like, it's my new drug. It's my drug. I am my own drug. Okay? It's that bad. I am my own drug. We all are. So that at the end of the year, when I integrated, I was like, wow, silence. And then there was a long time of just, I can't believe how quiet it is. It's so quiet now. I didn't have 4 people arguing and screaming in my head with Angel in the background screaming. And it was just, it still is quiet. It's how I know I'm not a multiple anymore, is it's quiet. So quiet. And that's why I was screaming so much. It wasn't to get over everybody else. It was just to get over my own head. That's why I screamed. Because I couldn't even hear myself among all of the altars. So I had to scream to get over my own voices in my head. That's something a lot of people are not aware of, that you're screaming because the voices in your head are that loud. And the more voices you have, the more you have multiple personality disorder. Because when you have no multiple personality disorder, it's quiet in there. So if you are not quiet upstairs, guess what that means? You are disintegrating. You've got to integrate. So if you have multiple personality disorder, this is how I did it. This is the cure. I learned how to integrate from having multiples to having one of me, to going, whoa, there is something else here. Because there's no one else here. So why is there more? So I integrated and I went, oh, and then I integrated again. And then I became addicted. But after the voices stopped overnight, instantly, and we all were integrated, I realized that I did not have a get out of jail free card anymore. I realized that I could not be myself anymore. Now that was a problem. That for me was like a nightmare, because I had this beautiful get out of jail free card where I could literally do whatever I wanted. And I did for a year, and that was my new drug. And I had no idea how to continue doing it after I was sane. And I refused to give that up. I refused to give it up. And I realized in order to keep it, I had to learn how to bring that part of identity out here. So I haven't gotten out yet. Like I'm still coming out. I have integrated so much now that I'm here. And I realize that the reason why no one else is here is because no one else is integrated. No one else is integrated. But you're born here. And then you got stuck and you kept going and time kept going and you became disintegrated more. For every year that you didn't grow, you disintegrated. And I am here alone, which means I am the only one who is healed. Because if you were healed, you would be here no matter what. And you're not. Because remember, I'm 44 years old and my mind is now 45. And I'm the only one here. And I can look out at everybody and see how far or how close they are. No one is here. And I'm just a normal 44, 45-year-old woman. This is normal. This is normal. And you can see my normal, my crying, my tantrums, my anger, my calling you stupid. It's normal. I hate calling you stupid. But here's the really sick thing. I watched my numbers. I stopped calling you guys stupid and my numbers just dropped. When I was calling you stupid, my numbers were going through the roof. I'm looking at you guys going, what the hell? I call you stupid. I abuse you. And you follow and watch like mice. I stop abusing you and you scatter, having no idea what to do with it. That's what I see. So I realized that I needed to get all of the inside of me onto the outside. But I know what's on the inside. I have been looking at me my whole life. I know exactly what's on the inside. And I'm sitting here looking at everybody out there, and I'm looking at me, and I'm looking at me on the inside, and I'm going, oh, you mean that's coming out? Okay. That's coming out. It's literally like, well, it is transmorfiguration. There we go. We're here. Transmorg. It's like it's coming out like that. And every time it blasts out, it sheds a layer, and then the next one. And once it comes out, it's this feeling of just, you know who you are when you're on weed, and you know who you are when you're on weed. And you suddenly become this really amazing person. And you're just like, why the fuck can't I be this way all the time? And then one day you don't take the weed and you're that person anyway. You need to be your weed self. That's what this is all about, guys. Because I'm the goddess of weed. Because I'm here first, so I claimed it. And I'm just sitting here going, dudes. You gotta just be your weed self. That's it. You've got to be your weed self. And it's really, this is my weed assignment. I'm doing it because I am that person. Here's the assignment. Take some weed. You do your circle with your friends, or just talk to yourself. Talk to me, okay? Talk to me. Respond to me. Say, hi, Anna, I'm doing it. And I'm going to be like, hi. Yes, tag me in it. I'd love to see what you do. Yes. It'd be so fucking awesome. My God, I'd love that. Do that. My God, I want to see that. I would love to listen to you guys for a change. Oh, yes, please. It'd be so original and authentic, and I'm starved for someone else's authenticity. The authentic is when you can be really fucking weird in all of yourself and you don't give a shit. It's when you can do whatever the fuck you want. Because when you have a brain like X, you're good. And that's when I realized I had a brain like X. So I could do whatever the fuck I wanted. Because I had a brain like this. And I'm going, whoa, that's nice. So let me tell you the best reward when you get here. The best reward when you become a genius, because you are when you take the program, is you get a get out of jail forever card. Because you are officially that fucking awesome. Example, the Dalai Lama decided to do a speaking thing. And what did he do? He put a napkin on his head. Because when you're that awesome, you can be that good. And I reached that point where I was like, wait a minute, I am officially so fucking smart that I can be me and people will just think, oh yeah, smart people are weird. Smart people are weird. Smart people are weird. If you're weird, it's because you're fucking smart, but you're stupid is in the way. Come on, you're fucking genius. That's why you're weird. Your genius, your weird is your genius seeping through. And you know those really fucking amazing moments about you, the parts of you that are just the most amazing, and you know it. So you like maybe work on those a little bit more. That's your genius leaking out. That's you. And the problem is you now can measure your leakage. So I'm going to teach you how to measure leakage, okay? The best thing I've ever said on YouTube. I just got to say, let me teach you how to measure leakage. So we're going to call this leakage measuring, because when you're this fucking smart, you can come up with some really stupid words for things like the bazinga bee, and everyone will be like, yep, nerd, we get it. So this is going to be called, just forgot. 1 hour and 43 minutes. I'll have to go back and plug this in. Damn it. Leakage. You have to measure your leakage. Okay. So this is how you do leakage measuring. This is what you do. You look at those moments where you are fucking amazing. And you rate them, not rate them on a ratio of 1 to, I mean, like check them off, like little tally. You're looking for the rate of weird. This is real math, people. Real math. You are looking for the rate of weird, okay? The rate of weird is going to tell you how much leakage you have. I love being at the point where I can officially just make fun of the words. So you want your rate of weird to measure your leakage. Now, at the same time, you are going to have to measure your resistance to your rate of weird. This is very important, okay? Your resistance is how sick you felt, scared you felt, how nervous you felt when you exposed your rate of weird. This is a real math formula that I used. When you measure how you are doing on that resistance, like you had a moment of weird, how did you feel? Was it a 1 uncomfortable or 10 uncomfortable? 10 being the most uncomfortable, 1 being, it was okay, I was fine. So you're going to measure on a scale of 1 to 10 how scared or nervous you were for that event, okay? Now, we're going to want how often you are weird, and we're going to measure on a scale of 1 to 10 the resistance. Now, we're going to want 2 different components. We're going to have to integrate them to get your grade. So here's what you're looking at. If you have a high rate of weird, I'm going to define high and low here in a moment. So if you have a high rate of weird, you're supposed to, that's good. You want 100% rate of weird. That's right. You want 100% rate of weird. And you want 0% resistance. That is the standard. You want 100% weird with 0% resistance. You get that combination and you're healed. That is how you measure how healed you are. What is your weird? That's what I want to know. What is your weird? What is your weird? I want to know your weird. What is your weird? That's going to be the question I ask people from now. What's your weird? What is your weird? Because that's really the part of us that was either so horrifically abused that we threw away, or it was the part of us that was so horrific we don't even remember it. And if you don't have a weird, it's because you are that disintegrated. That's how bad it is. I don't like talking about problems without solutions. I hate it. Every time I talk problem, I'm going problem, solution, problem, solution. Who's got problems? I've got solutions, problem, solutions. Like that's what I hear in my brain. So when like problems, okay, now solutions, because solutions. So solutions. This is called exposure therapy. This is where you're going to have to practice it. Okay, we're not going to use the word exposure therapy. It's called practice. It's called skill building. That's literally all this is. This is a skill. Yes, it is. This is a skill. Showing your weird is a skill. Showing your weird is a skill. Thinking outside the box is a skill. Turning really weird shit into something different is a skill. A skill is anything you can do. It does not matter if it's relevant or not. Serious does not have to be relevant. And that's the problem. That's where we start boxing it in. What is relevant? Don't ever ask, is it relevant? Abandon all relevancy when thinking about skills. This is the biggest trap we all fall into. Abandon all relevancy when scanning for skills. Because as soon as you look for relevancy, you start calculating your worth. Which is why you need to abandon all relevancy when scanning your skills. Just so you know. That is big. That is huge. So that was really it, was when I realized I could be my identity at all times. That I didn't have to wear any kind of mask. And I noticed it was a skill. And I had this horrible catch-22 that I lived in where I could see the magic. Oh, but that wasn't scientific. They'll think you're insane. Oh, but you can't be scientific because you're a girl. That was my hell. That I could see magic and I could do science and I was a girl. And that was the worst and hardest part of all of this, was my love for magic and my love for science and the fact that I could see them both laid on top of each other, and the fact that I was a walking catch-22. I was a catch-22. And I was constantly toggling between throwing away the magic that was so fucking obvious that the only logical explanation would be through science. Oh, but you can't touch that because you're a girl, so I must be insane. I want to know how many girls suffer from that. You could call it the girl sanity paradox. It's when a girl has to be stupid, but not too stupid so she's not insane. Pretty, but not so pretty as to be prettier than the next person. You neither want to be plain or too pretty. I never could attract attractive girlfriends. Never. No matter how much I tried, I never attracted a single attracted girlfriend. Until recently. Very recently. But my God, it was hard. I don't like to talk about what it was like being a girl because I don't want to do the whole girls had it bad and boys didn't. I don't do that shit. It's talking about prejudice. Talking about any kind of prejudice. It's the time to say, I have to talk about what I was abused about. But this isn't to say that only I suffered. Who said that? Because somebody somewhere believes that only I suffered. That's not what it is. It's looking for the empathy. We're all looking for the empathy. we're all looking for that person to listen and cry with us. Just listen and cry. It's like this constant, endless effort of looking for the empathy. That's what closure is. That's what closure really is. It's when you get the exchange of empathy. And people just listen and cry. But instead, no one is willing to listen. Which is why I'm going, everyone needs to get on YouTube and just record. Because eventually someone will start listening, but you have talked. Hell, tag me in the video and I'll listen. Yeah, tag me in the video and I'll listen to you. Absolutely. I know what it felt like needing somebody to just listen. And I did not have a therapist who could handle me. And I didn't trust him. There were things I wouldn't tell him. So I spent my entire therapy blogging and journaling about it instead. And it was life-changing. I learned courage. I learned my voice. I learned how to heal. I learned everything just from coming onto YouTube and talking for 9 years. Toothbridge challenge. It's not easy. It is not easy. It is not easy. And do not make the same mistakes I did. Do not allow comments. Don't allow it. Don't allow the live chat. Because there are absolute people with consumption. And they just consume. And they have been taught that the only way they will be heard is if they're abusive. So do not talk to anyone who's abusive. Do not give them any attention. Never give them attention. Because you are reteaching them that abuse is how you get attention. Every time you pay attention to somebody who abuses you, you reward them for them abusing you, which is why they keep doing it. Ignoring them when they are abusive is the only way. It is the only way. So it's this, I reach these dead ends where it's in conclusion. And I think back to all of it. And I run through the logic one more time. It's at a point where it constantly just, I'm always running logical code. sorting through it, constantly looking for error, looking for mistake. It's exhausting sometimes, a lot of times. I don't have to write the logical code to keep it going. I don't have to write the logical code to keep it going. Oh, this is a whole nother level of trust. If I put down the logical code, I haven't not written logical code since I was 4 years old. It's how I get out of my trauma, is I wrote all the logical code to get through it safely. That's how I broke the code to the mental illness, was I found the algorithm so I could walk through any mental situation and safely exit. All right. So yeah, toothbrush challenge to wrap it up for getting it all out there. And then if you are coming into this, back to the beginning and all the way through it. I am trying to plan out the next sequence. And I do believe we are ready to start the provision pack. The provision pack is my favorite. The provision pack is where we sit down at the bottom of Mount Everest and we start sorting through all of our supplies to make sure you've got everything you need for the journey ahead. This is where it starts to go game mode. I'm very, very excited because this is the part that I'm looking forward to, is the game mode and the story mode. But first, I just need to make sure all the boring theory shit is out of the way. I need to make sure that everyone's like, places, everyone, places. That's all this is me going places. My cat decided to stretch and throw something on the ground.
Yellow paint on his face.
He has yellow paint. Yeah, you got it.
Midnight. He's got so much on his
You're handling it.
his wisdom spots.
His wisdom spots. She calls the bald spots next to the cat's ears his wisdom spots. It's really funny. Yeah, she's taking care of the cat. All right. So that is what we have coming up. And that's what we'll be covering tomorrow. So thank you. And may the truth always find you.